Landlords, if you think the property standards are just about fixing things when they break, this video is for you, because enforcement is tightening. And locally, that isn't theory, it's already happening. The local councils are in the process of employing additional enforcement officers. Recent head of Department of One has confirmed that over £600,000 in fines were issued to landlords in the last year alone. So let me say something important. That's actually not a bad thing, because professional standards protect everyone. They protect your resident and they protect you, good owners, by being undercut by really poor practice. But if you don't fully understand what's required, you could be the one to get bitten in the bum. Now, property standards, they're not new. They've been in the private rented sector since 2004 under the Housing Health and Safety Rating System, HHSRS. And that framework identified 29 potential hazards, including damp and mold growth, excess cold, fire risk, electrical hazard, falls on stairs, carbon monoxide, ventilation, structural collapse. So it's not new legislation. But what is changing is enforcement focus. Councils are no longer reactive only. They are proactive. And since 27th of December, that's in play. They have the power to serve improvement notices, issue civil penalties, prosecute, impose fines of up to £30,000 per breach. That is £600,000, or that £600,000 locally is proof that that is real. So what's our duty of care? Well, to both owners and residents, as an agent, we sit in the middle. We protect our owners from fines, make sure the property is good and livable, but we also have a duty of care to our residents. And that balance matters, because if you ignore residents' concerns, the council gets involved. And once the council is involved, your control reduces. That's why we redesigned our inspection reports completely, because what does property okay in line with the tenancy terms actually mean? Does it confirm that the ventilation is adequate, extractor fans are functioning, trickle vents are clear, windows open properly, heating is capable of maintaining safe temperatures? Mold risk has been assessed properly. Vague inspections create a real risk. So let's have a look at that mold conversation. Historically, mold was often dismissed as lifestyle. Open a window, heat the property properly. Sometimes that is true, but today that assumption is really dangerous. So we designed a specific mold condition report. Why? Because we don't immediately conclude that mold is due to resident behaviour. We assess in this report ventilation system, extractor fan functionality, airflow, insulation that we can see, heating capability, humidity patterns, structural causes. Now, recently we took over a number of properties from another agent, and what did we find? Extractor fans that had stopped working, trickle vents that had been painted shut, windows that didn't open. Simple, fixable issues. But those small failures create condensation and mold risk. So if that resident reported mold and the council inspects, you will not be asked whether you meant well. You'll be assessed against hazard standards. So why are informal standards dangerous? Because sometimes owners rely on it looks fine, it's always been fine, they haven't complained. But here's the shift. Under HHSRS, risk is assessed objectively. And that's not about whether the resident has complained loudly. It's about whether a hazard is there. And councils are increasingly confident in acting. So what are councils going to be looking for? Well, when our enforcement officers inspect, they're inspecting Category 1 hazards, that's a serious risk to health, and Category 2 hazards, less severe but actionable. They don't need catastrophic conditions to act. They need evidence of risk. And if they identify a Category 1 hazard, they have a duty to intervene, which can mean improvement notices, emergency remedial action, and financial penalties. So in the properties, what happened in the properties that we recently took over? We found a number of issues. Guess what? Extractor fans not working, trickle vents painted over, windows sealed shut, maintenance requests that were unrecorded, no evidence of hazard reviews. None of those owners believed they were negligent. They assumed that because they hadn't heard anything, everything was fine. But that's why structured inspections really matter. So what should a proper inspection actually cover? Well, it should assess ventilation performance, heating adequacy, signs of damp or condensation, fire safety measures, electrical condition, only done visually, window safety and opening function, carbon monoxide alarms, general hazard risks. It's not a tick box exercise. It's a real risk assessment. And that's why we redesigned ours, because all OK protects no one. So why does it matter more this year? Well, with the Renters' Rights Act increasing transparency and tenant awareness, residents are more informed. They know they can complain, they can escalate, they can involve the council. And it's not a threat, it's accountability. So if your property meets standards, you've got nothing to fear. But if you're unsure what standards are required, you're exposed. So let's be clear, fines can reach £30,000 per breach. Improvement notices can escalate and legal costs add up, void periods increase. Mortgage lenders, they don't like enforcement action. And your reputation, that damage spreads quickly. But most of these risks come from lack of structured inspection, poor record keeping, delayed maintenance, informal management, not from deliberate wrongdoing. So landlords that do not fully understand what is required will get caught out, not because councils are hostile, but because standards are now enforced with confidence. If you're managing yourself, you are responsible for knowing HHSRS hazards, recognising risk, recording inspections properly, and acting quickly when issues arise, evidencing everything. That's the heavy compliance burden that is now with you. The positive side, and there is good news, if your property is well maintained, properly ventilated, professionally inspected, promptly repaired, and fully documented, you reduce your risk, your stress, enforcement exposure, and financial penalty exposure. Professional standards aren't about fear, they're about protection. So, a final thought. Property standards have existed since 2004. What's changed is enforcement. The local councils issuing fines is not theory, it's reality. But good owners, you've got nothing to fear. Unstructured management, though, is no longer safe. But if you are confident your inspections are structured, documented, hazard aware, big tick. But if you're unsure whether all OK would stand up under council scrutiny, that's the moment to review your approach. So why don't you subscribe to here to get next week issues when we're going to be looking at inspections in detail and share how a structured hazard-aware property review is carried out professionally, protective and proactive, one step at a time. I'll see you there.